from the great state of Texas, it's the Cynthia Austin Show with CMA Award winner, Cynthia Austin. Now, here's your host, Cynthia Austin.
Good evening and welcome to the show. I'm Cynthia Austin. With us tonight, we have the author of I Know I'm Different. Jamie Nally is on the program. Call your family and friends and tell them the Cynthia Austin Show is on. And we'll be back right after this. I was talking to some friends the other day and we were talking about how long do you think people should date before they get married or consider marriage? One friend says, okay, I just think they ought to go in and know exactly what it is they want. They should go in discussing. And then someone else says, well, I think that they should focus on the friendship, just go in being friends. My question was, okay, you have, for instance, in my family, my dad and my mom, my second mom, they dated for like 3 months and they've been married almost 40 years. Then you have people, you know, who have lived together 4 or more years. Then they get married and then they get a divorce. So how long, you know, this whole dating thing, how do you know that you've met that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with? Or how long should 2 people even date before considering marriage? Well, by the time we got through the conversation, they were asking me, well, Cynthia, what do you think? I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't ask me because I'm at the age, 50 plus, I'm at that speed dating age, when we go out, what's your mama name, what's your dad's name, how old are you, can you breathe, okay, good, let's go, But no, I think that it's up to the 2 people. I think that you should just know what you want. And then I think a lot of it has to do with age. People in their 20s and 30s may see it differently than people in their 40s or their 50s. I personally think that it's up to the 2 people. I think that when you go into the relationship, you go into it with an understanding of why you're spending so much time together. That's just my thought. I'd like to know yours. Go to our Facebook page, Cynthia Austin TV Show, and leave us your comments. When we come back, author Jamie Nally's on the show today, and she has penned a book, I Know I'm Different. You can log on to our online store at CynthiaAustinShow.com and purchase her book, amongst other great gifts that we have out there. Jamie McNally, when we come back in a moment.
The Cynthia Austin Show will be right back, right after these messages.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
We have a very special guest on the program today, author Jamie Nally. I know that I'm different. Jamie Nally, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So good to have you.
Good to be here.
I know that I'm different. Where does the book come from?
It comes from personal experience.
Okay.
I have a son who is differently abled. That's how he's got multiple disabilities. A lot of them are visible, a lot of them are not. And I want him to know that being different's okay.
His first diagnosis, how old was he when you found out that he had an issue?
He was 9 months old, 9.5 months old, and he started having seizures. And we were given an epilepsy diagnosis shortly after that.
Did you know at the time when he had his first seizure that he was having them?
No.
What was going on?
No.
What did you think was happening the first time? What was the symptom, if you don't mind sharing, because there could be a parent out there going through the same thing. What was it that you noticed that you later came to recognize what was going on, that it was a seizure?
Well, a lot of kids are diagnosed with colic,
Okay.
somewhat compared to with the symptoms that he was having.
What does colic
So-
do? I've heard of it, but what are the symptoms of colic?
I'm not sure because
Okay.
my kid never had it. He actually had, but the jerking of the body.
Okay.
And his was, it started off small, and they were only on one side at the time.
Okay.
So it was unusual, very
Okay.
much so.
So you just thought it was just a little twitch going on, just like, how we just
And
have
it-
little muscle spasms.
Right, and babies do that even more than adults do.
How often was this happening?
It started off rarely, just a couple times a day, and then by the time he was diagnosed, we figured out there was probably a couple hundred a day.
How? I almost want to say, how does his little body survive so much, so many? I know that had to have devastated you when you heard the news of what was actually going on with him. Did you feel like you wish you had taken him in sooner, or did you start feeling responsible as a parent in some way for what was going on?
Well, I think most parents always feel responsible in
do.
some way.
Yeah.
But it was so quick that if he had been having them longer, I don't think we noticed. So by the time it was evident that he's having these seizures, we got him in pretty quickly. When I called the doctor, they're like, okay, let's bring him in today. So they got me in the same day, and we're able to see him.
So that's one diagnosis. That in itself is enough to stop you in your tracks. Then you get another diagnosis. If you don't mind sharing with the audience, what was the second diagnosis?
Well, he actually had, from that time on, we found out with the first diagnosis, he had test MRI and everything else. He actually had significant brain damage. They believe he had a stroke in utero or around the time of birth. So every year for the next 3 years, he got 3 more diagnoses. And at 3.5, he was diagnosed with autism. So on top of everything else.
Okay. So when you get was the autism diagnosis, was that what, all of them are major.
Right.
But was that the one that kind of like took your thinking to another level of lots going on here?
Right. That one, at the time, there was just a lot going on TV about how devastating autism is. And, this was almost 10 years ago. So there was a lot going on. We have to find a cure. We have to do this. Autism is awful. And I thought, oh, how can my son have this? Oh no, what's going on? And that lasted all of about 3 days. And then had an epiphany. It's where God said, look, this is not about you. It's about him.
Right.
So you have to understand him.
So when you came to grips with everything that was going on, and okay, now the autism, what was it about the autism that, was it anything in particular about his behavior that helped you to identify with the autism, or?
The thing that originally sent us to the doctor and wondering, because we didn't know if he was having multiple different kinds of seizures, but he was having rages. And a 3-year-old having rages, and of course they started before that, but he would hit and scream, and this would go on for hours and hours. And he was nonverbal, so we couldn't talk to him and ask him what was going on, didn't know really what was going on with these behaviors. And finally we were sent to a pediatric neuropsych evaluation, and they diagnosed with autism. And that explained those behaviors. And that was, looking back, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
So we knew why he was doing this, and we're grateful to be able to do that.
Right.
And then the more I learned about it, the more I realized these rages were communication. You know, it was his way of communicating, and I just had to speak his language.
When he would have those rages, and when you learned to speak his language, what did you come to understand about what he was saying to you when he would have those rages?
He was saying that it's too much. Mommy, I can't take it.
Right.
So whether it be, you know, he was out in the community and something was triggering and it was just overwhelming sensory-wise. You know, he would have meltdowns and rages.
Yes.
And once I learned to speak his language, guess what? They slowed down to next to nothing, and now he'll have a meltdown every once in a while at 12, but it's rare.
Autistic children, as I understand, they have sensitive spirits. They are so pure. They are so, their nature is so innocent. It's like no matter how old they get, they maintain this sweetness about them. And when you learn to speak his language, when we come back, I want to talk more about your experience with your son and autism, but I'd also like for you to share more with the audience about your book, okay?
Okay.
But I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with author Jamie Nally. I Know That I'm Different. We'll be back right after this.
The Cynthia Austin Show will be right back right after these messages.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Be sure you log on to CynthiaAustinShow.com and visit our online store. And make sure you swing by the book section while you're there. There's some beautiful reads out there. We have Just Hold On, Willow Falls, No Regrets, Beautiful Scars, Hello God, A Life of Turmoil. I mean, everything from fiction to nonfiction, inspirational, anything, just books out there that will encourage you. Today we're talking to author Jamie Nally, and she has a book in the online store called I Know That I Am Different. And before we went to break, we were talking about children with autism and how your son was diagnosed with autism. And I wanted to say, you know, I think that a lot of people know someone who is autistic in their family or extended family. And what is it that they call under the radar? They're called under the radar. They're not diagnosed,
Right.
in other words. And until autism was brought to the forefront of the public's consciousness, I think a lot of people in families were considered weird or, you know, kind of crazy, if you will, that kind of thing, because people didn't know that they had autism. When you learned your son's language, what were some of the things that, how did you learn to speak his language, and how did he help you?
most of it was just spending time with him and realizing when he did have a meltdown or a rage, thinking back, what was happening? What do I need to avoid next time? Or what do I need to help him be comfortable with next time? And it's funny you use the word weird, because I use the word weird in the book because it's okay to be weird.
Yeah.
You know, we're all a little weird
Exactly.
sometimes. And he says that he's weird, but that he gets it from me, so it's okay.
So. Your son, you have a daughter, right?
I actually have 2 other children.
2 other children. How do they communicate with their brother, and how did you explain his challenges to them?
Well, my older son, I have one, he's almost 22.
Okay.
So quite a bit older.
Yeah.
And he was old enough to learn and to be on this journey with me. So as Landon was born, as he went through his diagnosis and everything, and he just accepted who Landon was and who he is today. And then Rebecca is younger. She'll be 9 in a week and a half.
Okay.
So she's never known Landon any other way. She's never known anything different. It's just, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago. It's just who he is, Mom. He's just normal to me.
Yeah.
So for her,
It's her norm.
it's her normal.
Right. In the book, what are some of the things that you discuss with parents or to children, about children? What are some of the issues you tackle in this book?
In this book, we tackle issues, you know, I'm different, but it's okay because God made me this way. So that's the opening page, of course. But talk about things like there are some days that he doesn't feel well and that he can't play and that he can't go out and enjoy it like other kids. But in other days, there's things, and he does things different. He just doesn't do them like other typical kids. And that's okay too. But just give him a chance.
Right.
He's a really good friend.
Right. What is your advice to parents who feel overwhelmed, or when they first receive the news that their child has a medical condition? What would you say to those parents at that moment?
Take a breath.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's going to be okay. There's going to be challenges, ups and downs. When you get a diagnosis like that, you go through a grief, and it's very real. And just because your child is still here doesn't mean you grieve, and you're allowed to grieve. You can't get stuck in that grief.
Right.
But the grief process is also not one that's linear. It's a ball, and you will have days that are awful, but then you have those days that are pure joy. So hold on to those joyful days.
Right.
And then learn as much about your child. There's no textbook on your child. Even if they're typical, there's no textbook out there for typical children. But when our children have different abilities, there's absolutely no textbook. And no matter what the experts say, which there's not any, but no matter what the experts say, you know your child best. And get to know that personality.
Well said.
Because they're pretty cool.
Well said. Yeah, exactly.
They are really cool.
And fear is natural. That's a
Yes.
normal reaction, you know. I know that in the church, if you will, in the Christian community, if you say I'm afraid, they'll say fear is not of God, you know. And it's like you have to explain to people, you know.
Fear is human.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
there are a lot of parents out there, Jamie, who your book, I thank God for you and for you writing it and sharing your story and sharing yourself with people, because a lot of times parents feel uncomfortable about, and people feel uncomfortable about sharing what they're going through. But then when you realize, that's why I think it's so important, and I thank God for giving you everything you needed to write this book, because it's going to help a lot of people, and just seeing you and your comfort with sharing your story is blessing a lot of people. I understand that there's a follow-up to the book. You mind sharing that?
there is a follow-up. And my daughter and I co-wrote a book. It's the companion book to this one.
Okay.
And it's called I Know That He's Different. And it's from the sibling's point of view. Because being the sibling of a child with different abilities is a whole nother story.
Yes.
A whole nother story.
Yes.
And it tackles some of the issues about she's allowed to get mad because sometimes it seems unfair to kids.
Right.
And that's okay.
How did you feel when the publisher, see we're running out of time, how did you feel when the publisher said to you, we want this second book, we want to?
I was ecstatic. And it was at a time where Rebecca wasn't home at the time, so I had to wait and tell her. I was so excited to tell her.
Which takes you back to when God let you know it's not about you.
Right.
You know, he had a greater purpose, has a greater purpose.
Definitely.
I am so pleased to have met you, and thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do. And if you don't mind, I want you to come back on the show when you get your the second book comes out, okay?
I would love to.
That'd
be great.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you, Jamie Nally.
Thank you.
Author Jamie Nally, I Know That I Am Different. Go to CynthiaAustinShow.com bookstore and get the book. We'll be back after this.
The Cynthia Austin Show will be right back right after these messages.
what to expect when you're expecting
Like here.
a teenager.
Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys, preferably somewhere they would never look. Did that go okay? You have to provide an outlet for their creative expression. So good. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey. Ready for the...
Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
That's all the time we have for this program. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our guest author, Jamie Nally. I know I'm different. Log on to CynthiaAustinShow.com and be sure to visit our online store. There's where you can find Jamie's book. In the meantime, join us on social media. Go out there and like us on Facebook, and we'll like you right back. Until next time, have the best week ever, and remember, love everybody the way you want to be loved and treat everybody the way you want to be treated. Until next time, I'm Cynthia Austin. Bye-bye.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.